All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of the Balance Breakdown. And today I am severely outnumbered by an endangering podcast. Today we are joined by the three gentlemen of the Combat Thoughts podcast. We are joined by Robbie, we are joined by Alex, and we are joined by Lee. Hello, gentlemen. How's it going?
Hello, Harry. Thanks for having us on.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So obviously I was graciously invited to come on your podcast and spent a bit of time and had a great laugh. Robbie, do you want to just talk a little bit about what Combat Thoughts is as a podcast and how people can find you?
Yes, no worries. So Combat Thoughts, we tried to go more for the we've tried to get away from the sort of very sports focused side of it. We've tried to go for the martial arts side of MMA, which we thought was a little bit lacking in a lot of podcasts. And, we try to talk about the deeper side of it without trying to sound too woo-woo. But really what we're doing is looking at interesting things about culture, about the way people train, about the effects it has on people and societies. And then we do a lot of interviews with people and try and delve into mostly what motivates them and what they're trying to do with the sport. Mostly it's just the three of us chatting shit about, combat sports and martial arts and hoping for the best. But we are everywhere called Combat Thoughts. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook. We put everything out on Spotify and Google Podcasts and I don't know what other ones there are. We're on all the major streaming platforms. Yeah, and YouTube. And if you want to send us an email, never given out the email before, it's combatthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. So if you fancy...
Phenomenal.
Well named, yes. It's easy to find. We're a big brain with a little George St. Pierre bandana on it, if you see our logo. And if you want to be on, if you've got any ideas for topics, give us a shout, because we're churning through podcasts at the moment. We need more ideas.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I really like the premise, right? The premise is that, again, obviously you've come today to do some fight breakdowns and some picks, but what I find was really interesting about your premise is that you as you say, you take the glue that's missing from a lot of these MMA podcasts and try and put that together, and I think that's really interesting.
Thank you.
Cheers. Always nice to get the shout out.
Yeah. Don't get it wrong. We love a Just Bleed moment as much as the next guy as well.
Course. Of course. So I just wanted to offer up some or get some thoughts on sort of the news that's come out in the last couple of days. And the first one is that supposedly Khabib has confirmed his retirement, right? First of all, I'll offer up Lee. What are your thoughts? Do you actually think he's retired? Do you think this is another marketing ploy? What do you think?
I'm shocked it's news. I had him retired months ago. I never thought Dana White was going to bring him back. I think there's been lots of smoke and mirrors from Dana whilst he's been kind of adding zeros to the check. I think Khabib was done the minute that fight was over. I completely have utmost respect for him retiring after his dad passing away. Let him get fat and let him do a football career.
Anyone else got any other opinions on that?
I think we're all of the same angle. I don't think Alex has ever said any different, and I think we're all. It's that meme where it's like, what was it from Friends? It's like, you are retired. You are retired. Will you come back? Just he said from the beginning, he's never given any indication that it'd do anything else. And Dana every time he's like, I think we can get him. I think we can get him back. No, like I've never thought any different. Don't know why it's news.
I think the only thing I would say that would potentially interest him is if GSP said that he'd come to 155 and do that fight. But look, there's more chance of me entering the UFC at 27 and equaling Khabib's record than I think GSP making that cut for one fight. I just can't see it happening. I think actually the only thing I would say is it's probably more likely to happen now that Khabib will as soon as Chandler and Oliveira get in the cage, which is our next news item, as soon as they get in the cage and Khabib has vacated that belt, there's probably more chance of it happening just because Dana has publicly said that he didn't want GSP to come back, win a title, and then fuck off again, right? And just cause all that mayhem. But I just definitely don't think it's happening. And I echo, Lee, your statements that actually it's really impressive to see somebody go out on top, one, and go out for the right reasons too. So yeah, massive props to Khabib. And we'll move on to Oliveira, Chandler, and Robbie. Tell me your thoughts on this fight. And just anyway, go on. Tell me your thoughts on this fight.
I'm not gonna lie, this is the first I've heard about it. I've been so out of the loop. I've had a mad week. I don't know how recent this news is, but that is news to me, and I am so happy they've made that. I mean,
the title as well.
I mean, yeah. Well, Oliveira, I was worried that he was going to get dragged along and just not get the title shot he deserves. You know, good on him. I think Oliveira deserves that shot. I don't think there's anyone else who could do better.
This is for the title, did you say?
Right.
Yeah. See, the one thing that puzzles me is, where's Dustin?
So, look, I saw this, right, and I literally texted my mate and the other boys that generally do the podcast, and I was like, why the fuck has Michael Chandler got a title shot? Who the fuck's Michael Chandler? Like, he's come in, and look, he had a great performance against Dan Hooker. Don't get me wrong, great performance. But Dan Hooker was nowhere near a title shot. So how does coming in, being a Bellator ex-champion, right, fair enough, and coming off a recent win of Benson Henderson, who, let's be honest, is nowhere near a UFC title shot either. Not anymore anyway. And you then come in, you beat Dan Hooker, and you're lumped into a title shot. Fuck off, man. Like, I know why it is, right? It's obviously because they're trying to set up Khabib Poirier. That's the rematch, and then whatever happens, either fights the title or tries to bring Khabib back if it's McGregor, right? But man, somebody tell me why Chandler's in there.
You know why I think he's in there? I think he's in there to lose. Now, I'm not saying that he will lose. I'm not even saying it's likely he'll lose. But you know what? If I was Dana and I'd brought on the Bellator champion, you know the first thing I'd want to happen to him? I'd want him, well, I either want to make him a superstar or I want him to get crushed and just, along with it, crush all credibility that Bellator have. So you throw him in at the very deep end, and one of two things happens. Either he smashes everyone in his path and he becomes your next superstar, and then who cares what organization he was from? Or he gets crushed and he goes, Bellator, it's not a real organization at all. That's why I think he's at the top. Against Oliveira, I don't know if Oliveira specifically got the style to beat him, but I do think that's why they're putting Chandler into a title shot in general.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have two thoughts on this. The first one is that the MMA gods are never going to let Dustin Poirier win a title. That's just the way this is going to go, right? I'm going to tell you right now how this is going to happen, right? Dustin Poirier has obviously chosen the McGregor money over a title, which, can we just say, that shows you how much money the McGregor money truly is, because how long has Dustin been saying his live stream is to be a UFC champion? And they're like, do you want a title shot? He's like, fuck that, give me McGregor, right? The first thing is that's incredible. Second thing is MMA gods are absolutely going to make it that McGregor comes in looking exactly like he did against Alvarez, smoke the shit out of Poirier, and that's it. Right, Poirier doesn't get a title shot for another 3, 4, 5 years, and by that time it's Frankie Edgar. He's getting smashed by some random Donny. But my initial thoughts are that it's a really tough fight for Oliveira. Yeah. It's a really tough fight for Oliveira. You know,
it's the worst stylistic matchup for Oliveira about everybody who was up there.
It's like Oliveira, but better, right?
Yeah, and kind of stronger wrestling, more power, and I think with everybody else, kind of Oliveira on his back, I'd feel quite comfortable in being there. I think Chandler, I don't think that's the case. I think Chandler kind of runs through him. I think he puts a bit of a clinic on and runs through him.
I think it's hard to say. I mean, I know he did really well against Hooker, and good on him. And I don't actually know that would have been a good style matchup for Chandler. So
I picked Hooker in that fight.
Yeah, but also, people think that he's this Bellator superstar, and in some ways he is. But it's not like he smashed through and like won every fight. He's had a very mixed record at Bellator. I'd have to check it, but I don't think he's on like a huge winning streak, is he?
So he took a loss to Patricky Pitbull. That was his last loss, and that was, I think, 2 fights ago. And since then, I think he got the win over Brent Primus again, and then he had a fight with Benson Henderson, which he won, and then he came to the UFC. Before the Patricky Pitbull win, a loss, sorry. His last loss was Brent Primus, and that was, the perennial nerve kick and the whole thing where the ring guy pulled away his seat as he sat down, and there was, a plethora of memes and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then until then, like you look at 2014 when he lost to Will Brooks, like it was, he doesn't lose often. He doesn't fight that often either. But I agree. Like the Dan Hooker match for me was like, okay, we're really going to see whether Michael Chandler's got it or not. And Dan Hooker just didn't throw a strike. And that felt very strange to me. I don't know whether that was Michael Chandler just having an incredibly good game plan, crowding Hooker. He didn't feel like he could throw anything. And then obviously that right hand landed, or whether it was Hooker just didn't turn up and Chandler did turn up. Like, I just don't know. But I feel, and my initial thoughts for Oliveira is obviously Oliveira's striking has got so much better since he's been in the UFC. However, I feel like Chandler just has a more well-rounded game plan on how to utilize his striking to get to the wrestling. If Oliveira is going to pull guard, like Chandler's just not going to entertain that, right? And I feel like if Oliveira does initiate the grappling, it's going to be really hard to take him down. And if he does take him down, it's going to be even harder to keep him there,
Yeah.
But look, I mean, Oliveira may just come in with something we've not seen before, take Chandler down. And look, if he can hold him down, Chandler's in a lot of trouble, right? But that's it. That's a huge ask, a huge ask.
I don't think there's much jiu-jitsu happening in the open. I think Chandler gets him, puts his back to the cage, keeps him there. If they do go to the ground, Chandler can put his shoulders onto the cage, takes away so many of his weapons and kind of nullifies what Oliveira can do.
I agree. So the other two fights that Robbie will almost certainly not have heard have come out. I'll ask Alex your opinion on one of them, and that's Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font. What are your thoughts?
Versus who, sorry?
Rob Font. Please tell me you know who Rob Font is.
Here's me being completely ignorant and not knowing who Rob Font is.
That's fine. I'll take this one. So I'll take this one off your hands and I'll give you the next one. I hate this fight. I really hate this fight. Like for me, and this sort of it parlays into the next, which is Cory Sandhagen's been announced to fight TJ Dillashaw, right? And I give another reason why I hate that fight too. The reason why I hate Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font is I think Rob Font should be fighting TJ Dillashaw. Now, I think it's a nice fight for Cody to come back to. Rob Font's not exactly a world beater, but's looked really good of late. Put a really nice win streak together. Predominantly, his big stamping win was Thomas Almeida. But I just feel like if Cody doesn't do what Cody does best, which is just lose his shit and then get knocked out, then this should be a really simple fight for Cody to win. Yeah. Cody's footwork is incredible. His boxing is incredible. His takedown defense is really, really good. And sort of Rob Font is a guy that will attempt to feint. He likes to counter. He's happy to step in. He's happy to wrestle. That's a recipe for disaster against somebody like Cody Garbrandt. So for me personally, I think it's a really good stars matchup for Cody. Rob Font has been asking for a big fight, and this is certainly a big fight, right? And if he comes away with a win here, then boy, we're off to the races, and it's a top 5 opponent next. But I just don't like it for Rob Font, and I really feel like he should be fighting TJ Dillashaw. But the last fight that was announced, and Alex, maybe you know these guys, Cory Sandhagen is fighting TJ Dillashaw. What do you think about that?
Please know these guys.
Come on. To be fair, I just looked up Rob Font and I know who he is. I just forgot his name. I couldn't put the face to the name. Anyway, I have to say I like that fight. I like that fight a lot, personally. Maybe not because of the rankings and whatever, and who should be going at what point in the rankings. I can see why you'd be shaking your head, Harry. It makes I see why it could be an annoying fight in that sense. But in terms of could there be an interesting fight? I think yes.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely going to be. It's a cool stylistic matchup. Both pretty heavy on striking, both quite technical in their striking. So this could be quite interesting. I think for me, the one about this, which I kind of playing UFC matchmaker, I quite like,
is they're going to run it back with Aljamain and Peter Yan again. You can't throw Sandhagen in against Sterling again because it didn't go well last time. For me, what you get here is Dillashaw's got a lot of what Sterling's got. Good wrestling, good striking. I think if it stays a striking match, it's a really good stand-up match. I think Dillashaw edges it with the wrestling, kind of puts him on his back or against the cage. But it allows us to see if Sandhagen has plugged them gaps. If he has, he's off to the races. Throw him in with Yan, throw him in a rematch with Sterling. I think it builds that hype a bit better. I think that's where the UFC have come from with this matchup.
So I agree with all of that. But if I'm Cory Sandhagen, why the fuck am I skipping over a title shot? Because I get what you're saying. Like, if Sterling goes out and beats Yan, which is unlikely based on what happened last time, but it could happen, right? Crazy things have happened in MMA. If he goes out and beats Yan, it's difficult to put Cory in. But really, it's not, because you've got, wheel kicks, you've got jumping knee finishes and all this stuff. You just put a highlight package together, and people aren't even, fucking Alex doesn't even know who Rob Font is. They're not going to care whether Cory Sandhagen got smushed by Aljamain in 15 seconds or whatever it was, right? It's not going to matter. But why, if you're Cory Sandhagen, do you not wait it out? Give your body a little bit of a chance to heal. Jump in, because he's obviously the number one contender. And instead, you're going to take a TJ Dillashaw, who's done nothing but heal his body over the last year or 2 years, still almost certainly has the effects of EPO, and is almost certainly still a phenomenal top of the food chain fighter.
Oh, well, I've got to wonder, though, if he sits it out, does he still stay the obvious title shot, because the title contender? Because, Garbrandt lost a couple, but he looked good in his last one. If he smashes this one, at the end of the day, Sandhagen's last fight was Sterling, wasn't it? He hasn't fought since.
No, he has.
He knocked out Frank Edgar.
Yeah, he knocked out Frank Edgar brutally.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess he's on a win, but the longer you sit out, the longer you allow other people to skip ahead of you. Also, he's got bills to pay. How long, Aljamain just took a massive knee to the face. I don't know how long he's out for, but it's going to be a while. Then he's going to have a training camp. Then they have to book it in with Peter Yan. How long can Sandhagen sit out? At the end of the day, these guys, they get, he's at the top. They probably get paid pretty well, but enough to survive on for 2 or 3 years.
Well, between the reports that I've seen from the sources that generally announce things that come true, is they're looking at rebooking Yan and Sterling in July.
I think that's a
bad
whole idea.
Conversation to happen. That's a whole other conversation to happen, right? But that's currently what it's looking like. July, August is when they're looking at rebooking that fight, right? If that's true, if I'm Cory Sandhagen, fuck TJ Dillashaw, bro.
Yeah.
Fuck TJ Dillashaw. I'm not, if you want to fight TJ Dillashaw, come and fight me when I've got the belt. Because if I'm Cory Sandhagen, obviously I believe I'm going to beat Aljamain on the rematch, or I'm going to beat Yan if I get the opportunity to. So you say to TJ Dillashaw, go and fight Rob Font's Dan if you want. I don't mind, right? Come and fight me when I've got the belt. Because, obviously for all of the financial reasons and whatever else. But look, we'll move on to the fights at hand, and we'll start with the main event. So, a rematch, obviously. We've got two of the greatest storylines for sort of just fighters and their hero arcs for MMA. You've got All-American, not wrestler, but Golden Gloves boxer, All-American, firefighter, man of the community, Stipe Miocic versus
Croatian.
Hated by the UFC.
Yeah, but let's be honest. He's Croatian, but he's not really Croatian, is he? You know what I mean?
He speaks Croatian after his fights, though, doesn't he?
No, that's just the way he speaks, mate.
Wow. Wow. And then we've got, a man that came from digging in the mines to now being one of the most fearsome fighters in the UFC, Francis Ngannou, right? Lee, what do you think?
I love this matchup, and I think we said before about kind of rematches and it being the right time to rematch. For me, this is the perfect time for these to rematch. I think there's glaring questions around Francis and his wrestling. And that's what he's been trying to plug. And he's had a couple of years now, maybe, is it, to plug that gap. We've not seen it tested. And that's the biggest question I have going into this. It's why I'm probably edging towards Stipe a little bit. But Stipe is a few years older. You can't forget what the DC fights take out of him. DC puts a beating on you. He hits you. He knocks your brain about a bit. And I think there is questions of Stipe's chin after those wars and kind of, will his chin stand up this time? And there's loads of kind of MMA rumors out there that that's why he lost the first DC fight, because his chin was compromised after the first Ngannou fight. It's only kind of compiled to now. I think if I had to bet, you kind of do go with the favorite being Stipe, but I think this time it's a hell of a lot closer.
Robbie, any conflicting thoughts?
What I'd say is it's just a huge question mark over Francis. I mean, I've not exactly seen. I don't know where he trains behind the scenes. And
he's Extreme Couture.
Extreme Couture in Vegas, isn't he? Yeah.
And he's had Kamaru Usman in his camp for a year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got everything he needs to patch up all of the holes he had against Stipe, but I don't know what he's done. I don't know how purposeful he's been. I don't know how much he's been tested because, well, you can have everything there, but it just depends how smart he's been personally in order to do it. I hope that first fight was a wake-up call because, again, I don't want to comment too much on the guy because I don't know how much of this is true, but apparently he just, used to train fitness and hit the bag, and that's what he did before the first fight. And you would have thought, oh, I'm going up against Stipe, I need to learn some goddamn wrestling. And he didn't the first time round. I'd hope that first fight was a wake-up for him. And if it is, he's had a long time to work on striking. So I'd be really interested. And the other thing is about heavyweights in general, they knock each other out all of the time. I feel like every matchup you have, there's never any... It's not like when you have an absolute dominating force like Khabib, you're like, he's going to win every single time. Any fight at heavyweight, no matter how sure I am, I go, I think he's going to win. But also, coin toss, no idea. Someone could just knock the other one out. And if anyone's going to knock someone out of nowhere, it's Francis.
You think? I mean, to me, if anyone's going to knock anyone out from nowhere, it's Derek fucking Lewis.
I take your point. But
I think there's one thing to consider here is that, so in the first fight, we had Ngannou gassing out pretty much and being pretty sluggish towards the later rounds. What I have seen at least is that he's dropped a lot of body mass. A lot of muscle mass has been, has been taken away from his body. So I think he won't be as sluggish in those later rounds. And not that I think, he probably doesn't have the cardio of Stipe, but that is also something to consider. So I think he could potentially, if it doesn't, it doesn't manage to knock him out, and he's managed to plug those holes, I think he does have more of a chance in those later rounds. So it could be close.
The other one for me around Ngannou in this fight, and you saw it in the Rosenstruck fight, his punches are still wild. They still come from kind of arching angles. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be anywhere near him when he throws them at me. But what that does give is Stipe opportunity to get in his hips. I think if the wrestling's the big one and everybody's jumping on the hype of, has he plugged the gap on his wrestling, which is true and he needs to, but also some crisper boxing is going to help him massively be in the right position to defend the takedown when it comes. Because it's coming. You can't start throwing kind of big haymakers from here, because Stipe is going to get under your hips and take you down. I think what I've seen from his Instagram, which counts for nothing, he has really tried to clean up his striking and keep it a lot kind of straighter punches, less arcing. You'd like to think that happens, but then what he did to Rosenstruck was just scream and start swinging.
So to me, there's a couple of things, right? And the first thing is about respect for power and respect for ability. And the other one is, as Robbie turned on before, is about taking losses well and sort of building on them. With Rosenstruck, and in a similar fashion to when he fought Alistair Overeem, like it kind of started in a measured pick my shots. And then he was like, oh, this dude's got fucking nothing for me, bro. I'm just going to start my train engine and run this dude over. Like, this is done. And in the same vein, against Overeem, like, again, it was sort of pitter-patter, and then he was like, okay, cool, I'm going to turn it up now. Like, this guy's got nothing for me. When it comes to Stipe, he was very vocal about saying, as Robbie alluded to, that there wasn't much of a ground game. There wasn't much of a game plan for, okay, there's going to be some wrestling involved, there's going to be some grappling involved. How do we counter that? It was, all of my chips are going into the first 2 rounds. If I don't knock him out, I'm probably fucked. And we saw that, right? That's how the game plan played out. That's how the fight played out. Now, you've got an Ngannou who's 3 or 4 fights deep. He's had way more training camps, way more times to round out his skill. He also, I feel like you have to respect that Stipe knows how to beat Francis Ngannou 1.0. So what are we going to see for Francis Ngannou 2.0? I think all 3 of you are absolutely right that if we see a measured Ngannou that picks his shots when they arrive, because they will arrive, right? Then I think it's going to be really hard to beat him. Really, really hard to beat him. But Stipe is so vastly underrated that he's a bit like the Jan Blachowicz of heavyweight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has opened as an underdog, hasn't he?
Yes.
That is madness to me, because I understand that Francis might have changed it up, but what have we seen to suggest that he definitely has?
Stipe
Nothing.
again? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bet the house. Except no, because it's heavyweight and there's just, you have no idea what's going to happen. But yeah, it's madness that Stipe is so underrated, because it was one thing when it was the massive hype train behind Ngannou, but didn't that end? Like, maybe not end, but I understand how people are overlooking Stipe as the clear favorite, because, okay, between the 2 men, the one that has to do more work in order to make this fight, in order to win this fight, is Ngannou, and maybe he's done that work. I don't know. No one knows.
Yeah. But I mean, does anyone else have any other first thoughts, or can we move to picks?
Let's go to picks.
Let's
go to picks.
Well, Lee, you've nominated yourself. So what's your pick, my friend?
Mine, straight away, Stipe. It's hard to bet against him for the reasons we've said. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think Francis might drop him or like hurt him, and you kind of sat on your chair going, ah! But I think Stipe is too smart, too much cage time, outpoint him, decision him again.
Robbie, what's your pick?
I've got to go Stipe by decision again, because I need to see something different to think that it's going to be a different result. And, I don't know what Francis has done. I don't know if anything's changed. So, yeah, I'd go a similar fight to last time.
Okay. Alex, what's your pick?
It's going to be boring, but I'm going with the same, man. I think Stipe will still get it, and I think it will be a decision. I doubt he will knock him out.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to pick Francis Ngannou to knock him out inside 3 rounds. The reason why I say that is because, okay, DC is a very, very elite fighter, right? We know this. We've seen this. And you also know that with DC comes an absolute pedigree in wrestling that sort of nullifies Stipe's opportunity to even engage in the grappling, because what's going to happen? You're just going to struggle to take him down, right? And if you do take him down, it's even harder to keep him there. Now, obviously, what we saw in that first fight was Stipe got caught inside the clinch. I can't imagine there's going to be too much clinching. I don't think Francis will want it, right? But if Francis has put the necessary things in place, he has reach, he has size, he has power advantages over Stipe. As long as he can keep this fight standing and engage in a sort of a striking battle that isn't, as Lee so gracefully put it, wild arcing punches, he has everything he needs to beat Stipe. I also think that this is a time that Miocic, as people have already said, there's lots of miles on that clock, both from his chin and just generally from his body, his wear and tear, right? We know he's had surgeries recently. So I wonder whether Father Time will catch up with Stipe here. And I think, you know, when Lee said I wouldn't want to be anywhere near any of those punches, you're goddamn fucking right, mate. I wouldn't even necessarily want to be in the same stadium when those punches start flying. So, yeah, look, I'm going to take Francis Ngannou inside 3 rounds. We'll move on to one of the greatest fights I think we're going to see this year. Just a fucking absolutely brilliant fight. And we talk about people that needed to put in the work and having no evidence of seeing it. I will bring you Brian Ortega, right? Lee, talk to me. What do you think? Alexander Volkanovski, Brian Ortega.
So I love this matchup. I think it's going to be one of the most interesting fights of the year. I think it's got fight of the night, fight of the year candidate written all over it. I think stylistically, this is Brian Ortega's fight. Mm-hmm. What Volkanovski gave to Holloway was pressure. Mm-hmm. And when he got later in the rounds, he stole the rounds with the wrestling against the cage. He'd go shoot in, push him against the cage, do stuff to win the judges. You can't do that with Ortega. And I mean,
you can, but you shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the height differential, you've seen how nasty Ortega's guillotine is. I think that's going to be on Volkanovski's mind. I think what that's going to do is it's going to stop Volkanovski coming forward and putting the pace on him. I think then Brian Ortega fights him at range. As long as he doesn't get kind of bought into a feint in battle where it's kind of you feint, I feint, and who can do the most kind of calf kicks. I think Brian Ortega keeps him at range. As soon as they're getting close, he threatens on a takedown, threatens a guillotine, and he just puts on a real stylistic performance to set up one of the best rematches I think we'll ever see in Holloway and Ortega.
Oh. I mean, just fucking sign me up now. That's a promo and a half, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's a fucking promo and a half. Alex,
I feel inspiredly inspired.
I'm hype on this card. This card's got me really hyped up. I'm going to stay up. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, shit. Fair enough. Well, you're always very committed, so I'm not actually that surprised. Well, I don't know. I'm actually going to play a bit of a devil's advocate here. I agree that Ortega, of course, can threaten takedowns. His ground game is yonks beyond Volkanovski's. But in terms of striking, I don't know. I think, Holloway arguably won that second fight. The first one was Volkanovski's, but it was like fairly close in both cases. And I think Holloway is probably one of the better strikers in that division. I don't think Ortega, even after his last performance, is quite up there. So I don't actually know if he'll be able to outstrike Volkanovski. I think if he's going to win it, it will be somewhere taking him down, grinding him, or taking a submission. But I think if it stays standing, I'm going with Volkanovski.
So the reason why I disagree with that approach, or necessarily the point about the striking, is Max and Ortega, from what we saw from Ortega in the Chang Sung-Jung fight, is just, they're two different types of strikers, right? Max is a volume, pressure forward. I don't care about angles. I'm just getting in your face and I'm going to chase you and cut the cage off and smash you to pieces until you don't want it anymore. Ortega against Chang Sung-Jung was all about angles. He was all about myriads of shots. He was all about mixing things up. And of course, as we know, as you rightly say, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the grappling is there. I don't really think Ortega's a strong wrestler, to be honest with you. No. We've not seen any evidence of that. We don't see him dumping people. We don't see him with high crotches or fancy takedowns. He either just grabs a hold of the neck and drags you to the mat, as we saw with, in a variety of his fights, or as you say, when he's pushed up against the fence, a la Cub Swanson, you're just going to get fucked, right? But I can't imagine he's going to initiate takedowns, traditional takedowns, against Volkanovski. We may see him wrap necks and we may see front headlocks. We may see all this sort of stuff. But I feel personally that if it's a striking battle, it's way closer than we think it is, just because of the style.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Ortega has never shown good aggressive wrestling. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to knock him. He's one of my favorite fighters, but He hasn't. Like, he's never been one to shoot doubles, or he's never been one to shoot in general. It's always scrambling. And the other thing about Ortega's fights is, I think Korean Zombie. I always mispronounce his name. Korean Zombie might have been the first convincing decision that Ortega's won. Ortega is brilliant because he goes through, he stumbles through the fights, usually loses about 2.5 rounds, and then pulls a submission out of fucking nowhere at the last second. And you know what? I love it because he's game for it. He goes forwards. You know, he makes it a fight. He doesn't necessarily win the whole thing, and then he just has an absolute blitz of a submission or like a knockout or something at the end. I mean, even those ones where he's won early against, say, Frankie Edgar, until towards the finish, I didn't really know who was winning. It's not like he was dominating. But the thing I'd say about Volkanovski versus Holloway is that, well, they're very different types of strikers. And Holloway is rangy. He keeps you at the very end, and he stops you closing the distance. And when you've not got takedown skills, you need to initiate some sort of scrambly clinch in order to end up with the fight on the mat. Volkanovski prefers to fight up close a lot more, which I think leans a lot more into Ortega maybe getting a takedown. And it's not going to be, he's not going to shoot on him. He's not going to get a double leg unless he's really been working on it. But his striking was so good, I can't imagine he's worked on anything but that since the Holloway fight.
That's the thing, isn't it? He took the year off after the Holloway fight to just solely focus on striking. He looked really good against Korean Zombie. I think that's what Volkanovski walks into. Volkanovski is about pressure and being that front foot. And I think that plays great into Ortega because as soon as he overextends, he gets in close, he can tie up with him. I think if he ties up with him one too many times, he's going to be in trouble in one of them.
Yeah, but Volkanovski is a much better matchup for him than Holloway. Holloway, I kind of wrote Ortega off straight away just because none of the skills matched up very well. Volkanovski, I think he's got a very good shot. The sad thing is that I don't think he's going to have been able to make up enough ground to, if Ortega wins this one, I think he gets smashed again by Holloway. But I think that's a story for a different day.
I mean, for me, Holloway is the greatest 145er alive right now, right? So regardless of whether you're closing gaps or not closing gaps, losing to Holloway is no shame whatsoever. Now, I think the only thing that I will offer is Brian Ortega's new striking style is based on movement and angles and positioning, right? Alexander Volkanovski has amazing low leg kicks. Good luck cutting angles and moving if you haven't got a front leg, right? Now, what did we see in the first fight against Holloway? Those leg kicks really affected him. In the second fight, it was like, nah, fuck it, I'll just take it. But we've never seen somebody beat up the leg of Ortega. Now, we know he's got Mexican blood. We know he's game for taking punishment. But at points, you can take as much punishment to your face as you want. But if your legs don't work, it's not the same thing, right? Now, if I'm Alexander Volkanovski, you're absolutely right. I don't want to get to a point where I'm in clinching distance, but I also don't want to be all the way out because Ortega's got a reach advantage on me. Where I want to be is in that middling distance. That middling distance where Alex is really good at fighting. He's used to fighting taller guys. He's used to fighting guys with range. If I'm Alexander Volkanovski's coach, I am beating the shit out of Brian Ortega's leg for 2 rounds and then just seeing what happens, right? So, I mean, but all of your points are entirely valid.
So I completely agree with you. But I have one kind of pushback on it. That is the game plan, right? And I think that's what the game plan will be. I think the height differential comes into point then because Volkanovski's got to be closer to kick him. I think I think Ortega doesn't get a takedown traditionally. I think if he's going to get a takedown, he gets one off a kick. He'll catch a kick or he'll shoot in on a lazy kick. If you throw a lazy calf kick and you run in on the ankle, I think that's how he'll get a takedown. I think Volkanovski will be much more conservative with his kicks than he was with Holloway because of the fear of that takedown, which is why I'm heavily Ortega.
I mean, I think it depends on what type of kick he throws, right? Because it depends. There's so many variations of low kick at the moment. You've got thigh, you've got perennial nerve, you've got low calf, you've got that stamp kick from John Jones, you've got the Conor McGregor version where he jumps in as a side kick, inside kicks, outside kicks. There's all sorts of throws. So, I mean, if Volkanovski, I think you're right, that the catching of the kick is there. We should also say that Alexander Volkanovski is no scrub when it comes to grappling, right?
Yeah.
So when even getting hold of him off an ankle pick is going to be tough. Getting on his hips and keeping his hips are going to be tough. Now, I agree that if Ortega gets to the hips, he's not going to look to take him down necessarily. He's probably just going to jump on his back, right? And then he's like, all right, let's play now, right? But I mean, look, let's move to picks because I think this is going to be interesting. Robbie, who have you got?
I think I lean towards Volkanovski because he's see, the trouble with Ortega is the same trouble we've got Francis Ngannou. I have no idea what he's worked on for the past however many years because he's only fought Korean Zombie and literally no one else since the last Holloway fight. I have no idea what he's worked on. So to base it on the skills that I know they both have, I have to give it to Volkanovski. Also, the fact that I rarely pick Ortega because, again, he stumbles through and loses entire fights until he finishes someone, and somehow got to a title shot by doing that. So I can't pick Ortega. But also, maybe he's worked on his striking even more. Maybe he's been working on takedowns a lot more and just didn't implement them a lot in the Korean Zombie fight. I'm picking Volkanovski probably by decision, by having a very good safe game plan and having a lot of leg kicks. But huge question mark over Ortega and what he's been working on and what he's going to bring to the fight. And I kind of want it to be Ortega. But yeah.
I mean, all I'm hearing is that you think Brian Ortega was the 145 Derek Lewis. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, more jits, but yeah, actually does ground game, but yeah.
It's the same way. Yeah. Like Derek Lewis uses knockout power and Brian Ortega uses submissions. Alex, what's your pick?
Yeah, I think I've already sold it. But I'm gonna go with Volkanovski through decision as well. I don't see him knocking Ortega out.
I agree.
I think it'll be a slow but effective strategy to win the fight.
Lee?
So I want to play it safe and kind of go decision Ortega, but I think the threat of the submissions plays on Volkanovski's mind, gets into a close striking contest. I think third round, Ortega lands a big takedown off the cage, gets a submission.
I mean, I'm not going to be as demented as Lee, but I am going to take Brian Ortega for 2 for 2. I feel like Alex's game plan for Volkanovski is probably what we're going to see. A slow, measured approach from Volkanovski. And I just imagine Ortega's going to turn the pressure up, right? And then when he turns that pressure up, we've never seen Volkanovski pushed back, really, right? We've never seen him properly backpedaling on the feet. Maybe Ortega pushes that in sparks, but if Alexander wants to then push in, good luck in the clinch situations, good luck in the grappling situations, because for sure, Volkanovski is the better wrestler. But as Robbie pointed out, this is about scrambles. This is not about wrestling. And I would bet my fucking house on if Volkanovski attempts to grapple, Ortega's going to make a scramble and we'll either end up on top or we'll end up in a dangerous position, right? The way that I think about this slightly is Alex Perez, Davison Figueiredo, right? Alex Perez shoots in and Davison's like, lol, give me that guillotine. And then, that's it, right? Now, I'm not saying that's how it will go. I feel like Ortega will win a decision, but I'm picking Brian Ortega.
Okay.
So I will go to the first fight, which is Tyron Woodley, Vicente Luque. Who has that fight? Is that you, Robbie? Or is that you, Lee?
That's me, yeah.
Yeah, so I understood that you fought Robbie for it, so that's fine. Do you want to take us away with what you think is going to happen in this fight?
Yeah, so I love this fight. I really haven't bought into the hype yet that Tyron Woodley's done. I think
you don't think the UFC hates him?
Well, I think the UFC hates him. Oh God, they
okay,
do.
fine.
Well, I think there's a big narrative being pushed of Tyron Woodley's done, and it's like Colby Covington's world class, and like you kind of look at who he's lost to. He kind of lost his title. Yeah, it wasn't a good performance, and everybody's kind of doing this whole thing of paralysis, of doesn't throw his shots anymore, and you're like, okay. Then Gilbert Burns, and then Colby Covington, 3 world class guys. Vicente Luque's on a bit of a hype at the minute. His fights with what's he called? With a huge back. He messed up his eye. I forgot his name. Oh,
huge back messed up his eye.
Gorilla?
I'm just pulling his record up. Nico Price. The fight with Nico Price.
Sure. That's some description of Nico Price. That
I'm not fanboying, but that is a real impressive back. So everybody's jumping on the hype of Tyron Woodley's done. Here's a guy with a bit of hype who's kind of on a win streak, 2-fight win streak. His only loss kind of recently being Stephen Thompson. This is the test for Vicente Luque of how good are you? If you beat this guy, you buy his hype, you kind of take his name, carry on to bigger, greater things. For me, the way Vicente Luque fights is mobile on his feet, gets taken down every fight, and kind of has like a step back counter approach. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a Tyron Woodley wrestle fuck for 3 rounds and take it, and kind of just be a pain in the ass for UFC for a couple more years.
How fucking dare you disrespect my boy Vicente Luque like this? The violence king of 170 pounds, and you expect Tyron Woodley to take him down and wrestle him for 3 rounds? I mean, you're probably absolutely right. Alex, have you got any thoughts?
I haven't given a massive lot of thought on this fight, but I think
don't know who Vicente Luque is, do you?
Come on, man.
Oh,
I fucking dug myself a hole with this Rob Font thing. No, I think it's a very interesting fight. I think especially because of the fact that I think most people think Woodley is done. I agree with you, Lee. I don't think he is, but I actually think that Luque could make this quite ugly for Woodley. I think he's a bit of an I don't know if unorthodox fighter is the right word, but he is he creates some interesting situations. So I think that Luque could pose some issues for Woodley in the striking realm. I think he, of course, as Lee alluded to, has the danger of being taken down by Woodley. I think Woodley's wrestling could play a part here, but in the striking realm, I think Luque could create some problems.
Robbie, let's talk some sense. Come on.
Thing is, I can't see Woodley turning it around in a super powerful way at the moment. I'm just having a quick flick back through. I mean, I guess, he has only lost to some... I know he's lost to some really world-class guys. It's not like he's lost to any scrubs, but he's lost very convincingly to them. He's just not pulling the trigger at the moment. And I don't want to just write him off.
This fight isn't about pulling the trigger. Vicente Luque can't nullify his wrestling.
How dare you?
That was his problem with the last 3. Once his wrestling was nullified, he got into a striking contest and lost because of volume. Vicente Luque can't nullify his wrestling.
Let me argue that right now. So
okay, I want to see this battle before I weigh in anymore.
I agree with your point that Woodley's wrestling is definitely an X factor here. However, Woodley has to get there, right? Mm-hmm. We must say the reason why all this stuff about Woodley not pulling the trigger is because he's had 3 torn labrums, right? He tore his labrum in the Woodley fight, obviously, in the Wonderboy fight. It didn't heal by the second time, and he tore it again, and then he tore it in camp, right? That's terrible news for a man that throws big right hands, right? My thought, though, is let's just go through Vicente Luque's record if it's only just for Alex hearing it the first time. So, okay, Mike Graves, average wrestler, loses to him, fine. Bilal Muhammad, decent wrestler, fucks him up in a minute. Leon Edwards, okay, Leon Edwards, absolutely world class, no problems whatsoever. Nico Price can wrestle. He submits Nico Price. Fuck you, wrestling. Chad Lepre, average wrestler. Fucks up Chad Lepre. Jalen Turner, not a wrestler. Fine. Brian Barberina is an average grappler. Fucks Brian Barberina up. Right? We then move into Mike Perry. Lol, can't even spell wrestling. Right? So it's not like, and then the second Nico Price fucks him up again. Now, I'm not saying Randy Brown, also brown belt jiu-jitsu, knows how to wrestle, got fucked up. I'm not saying that Vicente Luque is going to come out here and, just dominate the takedowns. But let's not get away from it. Vicente Luque is no scrub with one takedown defense and 2 submissions. Robbie, please continue.
The thing is, I guess it's more about aggression than it is about the pulling the trigger thing. The issue is that he's not there pushing the action. If he hangs back and does his whole thing about putting his foot on the edge of the fence, great takedowns or not, he's going to struggle to get in position to land them. The problem with this strategy of putting your foot against the fence is that it's all well and good when you have, if you're just trying to knock the guy out. And at the end of the day, like even against Darren Till, that all came off of a knockdown. That he had that huge counter right and had that knockdown, and that's when it hit the ground. Putting your foot against the fence isn't good for an aggressive wrestling game plan, and that's what he got so used to over the past few fights. If he wants to implement an aggressive game plan, he's going to have to change his style up enormously, because he's going to have to move away from that very counter-striking backwards movement to a very forwards moving. Yeah, he's just going to have to come on, and he's got to change so much about his game plan. I think he actually does have the skills there to change it up. Obviously against Robbie Lawler, quick fight, he did definitely come forwards. But, Wonder Boy, even, he was hanging back. He didn't take the fight to Wonder Boy to take him down to the ground, at least definitely not in the second fight. I think Woodley's just got too much that he needs to change from his recent style in order to make anything work against Vicente Luque. The other thing is, how many of these fighters who we do see really fall off a cliff? Because, I think the reason we do see fighters fall off like this is typically due to injury rather than inability to fight. And that is what we've seen with Woodley, is that he's torn the labrum, right? Sometimes I don't even know what the injury is, but there's a reason that fighters, especially, I have a feeling that it's all these fighters at middleweight and welterweight, when they start losing, they just start plummeting down. If it's because of injury, not many of them ever arrest that. Not many of them ever come back from it after they start having that long streak. And I don't know why Woodley would be any different.
Vicente Luque hype train, let's fucking go. Right, so we'll move to picks. Alex, can you give me your pick, please, sir?
I'm going Luque, but decision.
Yes, my boy. Lee, throw a spanner in the works, come on.
Yeah, you're not making a name off Tyron Woodley today. I'm sorry, Mr. Vicente Luque. I think Tyron Woodley is never going to be top 5 again. I think he's probably got a little bit too much for Vicente Luque and wins by a wrestle decision. I think Tyron Woodley also is going to benefit greatly from not having the crowd there, because it's going to be constant woos, because he's just going to be shooting in.
Yeah, actually, I think we should play the woos just for Tyron Woodley, but
yeah.
Robbie, go on, give me a pick.
Vicente, of course, because Tyron's got too much to change to implement a good game plan. And I think if anyone's going to arrest that downward plummet that any of them have from injury, you got to take more time off than he has, and he's had less than a year off. You need to take more time than that off to start dealing with that and healing up, and he hasn't taken that. I don't see why this fight's any different from any of Woodley's last few.
So I also am going to take Vicente Luque, and I'm going to take Vicente Luque by late stoppage in the third. And I'll explain why. So there is absolutely a way for Tyron Woodley to win this, and it's to close the distance, clinch, and get his takedowns, right? However, I've not seen Tyron Woodley do that in years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What I saw was him against almost everyone is, as Robbie said, put his foot against the cage and wait and wait and wait and effectively do nothing, right? The way to beat Tyron Woodley, the blueprint was given by, I mean, obviously those two, but predominantly Colby Covington. The way Colby Covington beat Robbie Lawler is the way he beat Tyron Woodley. He's gonna throw shots. He's gonna wait for you to do something. He's not gonna let you do that because he's already throwing shots or he's shooting for takedowns or whatever. I don't expect Vicente Luque to shoot takedowns on Tyron Woodley because why waste the energy? But you put him again, you let him walk himself to the fucking cage and you just pepper him. You know a big right hand's coming. That's all you have to worry about. He's not going to shoot a blast double off the cage. It just doesn't, it's not going to work, right? And if Tyron Woodley tries to close the distance in the middle, Luque's got elbows, he's got knees. Man, I just can't see. The other thing as well that I'll add is damage, right? Not just the labrum. He took a lot of damage, like physical damage from Kamaru Usman just picking him up and slamming him. Okay, he didn't take too many shots. Colby Covington the same, and Gilbert Burns the same, right? Man, you don't go in against War Luque, expect to come out clean shaven. It just doesn't happen. My fucking boy, Vicente Luque, TKO late third. Let's go.
Wait, what does Robbie, what was, because you didn't say what you think Luque won by.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I think he finishes him.
Yes, Robbie. Let's fucking.
You know what?
The hype train, but geez, Robert.
I don't think it's much of a hype train. Like a hype train versus Woodley is like what? Like, oh, they're going to implement a sort of standard game plan that people have laid out very well over the past few fights and have decent striking against a guy who's not going to push the pace. It's not really a hype train. It's there's a blueprint. You got to follow it. He has the ability to follow it. Like he's got the skills needed. Give it what's this, a 3-round fight? I'll say finish in the second round because I don't know what round. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to throw it out there. I always find like MMA is just such an unpredictable, chaotic sport. Being able to pick the winner is chaos in itself. Being able to pick when and how, ludicrous that we could manage it. But I'm still going to try for all of them.
So I'm going to defend myself on one way as well, because the people who are watching are probably thinking this guy's a fucking lunatic. But the Blachowicz fight, I got every fight on the card right, so I'm spitting knowledge.
Yeah, so I mean, my final point on Vicente Luque is since 2015, he's only lost to Leon Edwards and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, right? Both really, really elite guys. Now, the only problem with his record is that he's not really had anyone in between the middle pack and then the top 5, right? It's either been fucking Leon Edwards or Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, or it's a Brian Barberina or a Bilal Muhammad or whatever. And all of these are great, really, really good fighters, but just not anywhere in between. And I just feel like time's right. Like, and I'm not saying that Vicente Luque goes on and challenges for the title or anything crazy like that, but man, he should fucking beat Tyron Woodley. He really, really should.
Do you know what? So I'm a big thing of kind of symbolism and things like that. I'm all like that. I think almost a year later as well, I think this is what they was doing or what they was trying to do with Leon Edwards to the Tyron Woodley fight.
Agree.
Give him the rub off the name.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
You know, the other thing I'll say about that, you say that the two guys who have given him trouble are Vicente trouble are Edwards and Thompson.
Yep.
Neither of them look a whole lot like Woodley. Nothing. I mean,
to
like
be
Woodley.
honest, and also to be fair, not many of the guys that he's fought look like Tyron Woodley either. Let's be honest. But well,
no one does. It's true.
The last thing I'll say on this is Tyron Woodley's on a 3-fight skid. The UFC are actively looking to reduce their roster of high-paid fighters. See, I tell you what, Tyron Woodley, here's war fucking Vicente Luque. So enjoy your trip to Bellator.
Do you know what? I hate you guys, but I also think you've probably saved me some money because I bought highly on the 2-1 on Paddy Power. I was going in on Woodley to make some money. I think you may have reduced my bet slightly.
Look, mate, you can thank me later. We'll move on to if somebody doesn't lose a leg, an absolute banger of a fight. So we've got Thomas Almeida versus Sean O'Malley. Like this to me feels a little bit like Vicente, Luque, Tyron, Woodley, but if the sort of the positioning of the fighters are like way further down the rankings. Thomas Almeida comes into the UFC and is unbeaten, just absolutely starching everyone for years. Then he takes a bad loss to Cody Garbrandt, and you know these things happen. And from then took a long time out, went through the promotion, came back, and to me, doesn't look like the same Thomas Almeida. I went back and I watched some of his fights from sort of way back when, and then I watched his fight most recently, and he's just not the same dude. He doesn't put his foot on the gas. He takes shots way worse. He's not as aggressive. His feints aren't there. And then you've got Sean O'Malley, right? And I went back and again, I watched the Sean O'Malley Eddie Wineland, and I watched the Sean O'Malley Chito Vera. And there's two things I'll say. The first one about Sean O'Malley Eddie Wineland is that the commentary was so fucking biased. It was unbelievable. You would have thought that Eddie Wineland didn't have fucking arms in that fight. Sean O'Malley would throw shots, and don't get me wrong, he'd land. But Eddie Wineland cracked him a good few times, right? That motherfucker, as good as he is hittable.
Yes.
Now, okay, we saw what happened to Eddie Wineland. He took a sniper right hand. By the way, Alex, do you know who Eddie Wineland is?
Yes.
It's fine.
I'm getting roasted.
I'll only bring this back out at the end of the card when clearly you won't know any of them. But yeah, look, I mean, Sean O'Malley, for as good as he is, movement-wise and whatever, I feel like he leaves himself in the pocket a little bit too long. He admires his work, is what they say in the striking realms, right? And that works against an Eddie Wineland. That works against lower-tier fighters. That probably is going to work against Thomas Almeida, but it wouldn't have worked against Thomas Almeida 5 years ago. Now, in the Chito Vera fight, I actually thought Sean O'Malley looked absolutely phenomenal. You know, he was dictating things. The leg kicks were there, the body kicks are there, and he stung Chito Vera enough. And I thought it was a really, really good performance until, right? And when that perennial kick came, that's why I can't take too much away from that performance, because he was fighting on one leg, right? And fighting a high-level guy like Chito Vera on one leg is going to be debilitating as it is. And sort of what we saw after was what we saw after. And, you know, I feel like this is a really, really nice matchup for O'Malley to come back in. Almeida's got a name, not too big of a name, but a name. He doesn't look anywhere near what he looked like 5 years ago. O'Malley can come in here. He's not going to worry about wrestling. This is a stand-up fight, right? And I can't see it going any other way than Sean O'Malley. But Alex, educate me.
Oof. Don't know if I can, but I would agree. I think I mean Thomas Almeida, he's lost his last 3 fights. He's definitely not been looking his old self. And I think you know, O'Malley, sure, okay, he lost that fight against Chito, but I agree with you. I think he also looked really good up until the moment when he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think Sean O'Malley is a bit of a Conor McGregor in that he gives up a little bit when things get a bit tough. But that's my personal opinion. I mean, look, I get it.
Hey,
if you can't, if you fucking can't stand on your leg, you don't really want to be in there with a killer like Chito Vera. So I don't blame him for it. And maybe he really did feel like he was done. But at the same time, I don't see Almeida posing the same risks to O'Malley as Chito did. So I do think that Sean can take this, and with his steady approach of picking his shots, I think he will take this.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing to add is you did know that Thomas Almeida has fought Rob Font, right?
Yeah.
Right.
How would he know that?
Exactly,
yeah.
that's my point. Oh, he fought this mysterious man that I've never heard of before. The only thing I will argue against your point of O'Malley quitting is we have to remember that in the fight before Chito Vera, the fight before Eddie Wineland, that was the foot that he broke, right? So there's clearly something going on with that leg, right? There's severe damage somewhere. But yeah, you obviously hate Conor McGregor and Sean O'Malley. That's fine. Robbie, what are your thoughts?
I've got to wonder, how long has it been since O'Malley fought?
August
last year. You know what?
Yeah.
I like that because I think, well, it's because they have their paydays to make and they want to keep up momentum. I think it's good when people take damaging losses, whether it's a bad knockout or it's a damage to their leg. I like it when guys take time out because it stops them falling off that cliff. If O'Malley had come back like 2 months later, just like ready to go again, like maybe we would have lost that one and lost it. I like that he takes a bit of time out. However, the thing is, well, actually, maybe not even however, the thing is, any fight, like O'Malley has only lost one. He is still the hopeful golden boy for the UFC. Dana's probably still seeing money bags every time he looks at his weirdly colored hair and like crazy tattoos he's got on him, and the fact that he smokes about a ton of weed every day. He just fits a certain market. Dana looks at him and just sees cash. I think everyone kind of knows that Thomas Almeida has been brought here to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be, I feel bad when I say this about professional fighters who obviously not only could beat me up, but have done more successfully in this than I ever could hope to. However, Thomas Almeida is on a bit of a skid. He doesn't look like he used to. O'Malley is someone who the UFC wants to build up, does have some excellent skills, excellent pressure fighting and like counter shots, and kind of McGregor-esque in that style. I don't think they would have put this fight together if they didn't think O'Malley would smash him.
Yeah, it's quite. I remember the Garbrandt Almeida fight, and I was really hyped for it because it was these two killers, and
absolutely the two undefeated guys.
Yeah, and it was a real hype fight, and I remember seeing Almeida kind of before the Garbrandt fight, and he was nasty. He's kind of become the guy you make a name off of in 135 now. Started with Garbrandt, Jimmy Rivera did it, Rob Font. You get your name. Yeah, well, yeah, you get your name off kind of defeating him. I think what the UFC have done, and they love Sean O'Malley, right? So he's going to be kid gloved and kind of put back in. What they've done is they've put him in for a fight with somebody who's a heavy puncher, and that does create risk. But he's quite flat-footed. He's got heavy punches. He's not going to like kick the shit out of O'Malley, which is probably what he needs for a fight. And O'Malley can stay at the end of his range and kind of pick his shots. I think it's smart matchmaking by the UFC for their pockets. As much as I quite like people doing the big upset to screw Dana, and it's quite fun to watch, I can't see any other way than O'Malley having quite an impressive performance where he kind of puts a bit of a clinic on Almeida, and we kind of lose Almeida to Bellator.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I will add to your point, Robbie, about fighters needing paychecks is Sean O'Malley makes more money from Twitch than he does from fighting.
That's probably why he's been out so long.
Right,
because he can afford to.
And this is my thing, right? Like however, that could also be a detriment, right? When your residual income is so vast in comparison to your fighting income, why bother? Right now, okay, you love it, blah, 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 blah. But do you love it as much as the guys that truly love it, right? But anyway, I
heard you say that's why Pedro Van Zandt never became a champion, right?
Mate, I can't confirm or deny whether I said that on or offline, but I definitely didn't. Alex, you know who Pedro Van Zandt is, right? Instagram, yeah, yeah. Anyway, we'll move to picks. Alex, who've you got?
I'm going with O'Malley. I'm gonna go with a KO in the second round.
All right, cool. Robbie?
Sean O'Malley, first round KO. Almeida's not looked like he's there, and Sean O'Malley's been brought here to win.
Lee?
O'Malley, second, third round, knockout TKO. The hype train carries on, and we do the Chicho fight again, which I'd be really keen to watch.
So yeah, I'm obviously taking O'Malley as well. I think I agree with Alex. It'll be second round. For all of Almeida's lackings over the last little while, he's still tough as fuck, and he's still got a chin. And I think it will take a little while for that to be broken down. You know, for as much as O'Malley is active, he's not super. He doesn't headhunt, right? He picks his shots. He's happy to strike wherever it lands. So, yeah, I expect a second round finish. Will take us into Lee's fight.
That one's mine actually. That's the one I swapped with Lee. Right, but just fine. Before we move on from that, I just wanted to point out that I love, before we move on from the bantamweight, I love that finally, after all of these years, we are no longer talking about Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt, and TJ Dillashaw having a little threesome for the title. Suddenly, all of them are fighting different people. We have other guys in the title shot, and we have stars like Sean O'Malley, look, you know, brought here for an obvious win or not. I love that finally bantamweight is becoming that real star of a division that it, you know, always could have been, and which the UFC, to be frank, always wasted. So yeah, I'm glad that we've got people like mentally undefeated Sean O'Malley to give a bit of stardom to the bantamweight division.
I do think as well, though, that there's sort of two reasons that I see are vastly obvious for that. And the first is that at the end of the day, Dom, Cody, and TJ were just so far ahead of the talent, right? So it's hard to not keep talking about them. And in the same vein, it feels like the UFC didn't invest anywhere near as well as they could have in 135. Whereas now,
yes,
as you rightly say, there's a whole crop of fresh talent at 135. I also think Dom's getting older. TJ's too busy juicing his gills on EPO, and Cody is too busy getting angry and knocking himself out against his TV or something stupid like that, right?
Fighting flight attendants recently as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only easy dub he's going to get, you know what I mean? Yeah, look, do you want to talk to me about Jamie Mullarkey and Kharma Worthy, Robbie?
I do. Well, I mean, bantamweight is good. Lightweight, even fucking better. Best division in the UFC. So, you know, the fact is, though, these guys have had an awful lot of fights, and I'm pretty sure they're not even ranked at the moment, which is all you really need to know about this ridiculous division. That said, Mullarkey is on a slight skid at the moment. I think he's just had 2 UFC fights, lost them both. One to Gillespie, which, oh wait, yeah, by the time this goes out, we'll know whether he's won or not, but absolute star. Worthy, I believe he's lost his last one, but he's won the 2 or 3 before that he's had in the UFC. Worthy is a guy with scary power. People are afraid to come in on him. I can't remember the guy who used to be a teammate of his that he was fighting against, but they were clearly really.
Ottoman Zaitar?
Ottoman Zaitar? No, not Zaitar. 2 fights before, because he lost that fight against Zaitar. No, 2 fights before that. I think it was his debut in the UFC.
Devontae Smith.
God, I'm getting mixed up about the
name.
Devontae
Smith was his
Devontae Smith. It'll be Devontae Smith. Yeah. So you saw them going in, and they were both really, really cautious about engaging with each other. And you saw why. Because as soon as he made a mistake, as soon as he came too close, you barely even see the uppercut come in, and suddenly, you know, he's slumped on the ground, knocked out. Yeah, scary power. And then he also fought Violent Bob Ross.
Arguably the best nickname in the UFC.
I'll take Violent Bob Ross and I'll raise you, it's your boy.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, oh God, I fucking hate Eric Anders.
But the nickname, come on, like it's excellent. But Violent Bob Ross, you know, he was arguably losing a lot of that fight with the grappling. You know, he's winning on the feet, but as soon as he saw an opportunity for that guillotine, standing, slips it in there, he was not, he was not letting go of that. He has got grips like an absolute vice. I don't even know about his skills, but just physically, Kharma Worthy is an absolute demon. Jamie Mullarkey, on the other hand, absolute tough as nails. Like he's got great leg kicks when he uses them. He doesn't give up. He keeps the pace going the whole fight. And even when he does take a beating, which he really did towards the end of the Gillespie fight, he got...
Fought Gillespie, by the way. You're confusing him with Brad Riddell.
Oh, God, am I? Oh, sorry, Riddell.
It's because you think he's New Zealand, but he's not.
No, it's I'll tell you why. It's because I've written that breakdown for Gillespie versus Riddell, and now getting very mixed up about who's fought who. Sorry, Riddell, not Gillespie. He took an absolute beating towards the end of that fight. He looked a mess. He didn't stop coming for him though. Here and there, he just went, "Oh my God, what am I doing here?" And then he went straight back to it. So, yeah, Jamie Mullarkey, tough guy.
Lee.
I echo everything Robbie's just said. I think this is a show of toughness and determination, and somebody who's just kind of a lot stronger. I think Worthy's just going to be a bit too much power-wise, a bit too strong. I think Mullarkey's waiting on him to kind of gas and hopefully capitalize. I think if Worthy doesn't gas, it's there's a big power disparity, which I think carries him in this fight.
Yeah, I actually have absolutely nothing more to say on that. Alex, do you have anything to round us out?
No, to be honest, I don't really know either of the fighters.
Jesus Christ. Right, we'll move to picks. Lee, what's your pick?
Worthy decision.
Robbie?
I think Worthy gets him with a knockout early, honestly. What I would like to see from Mullarkey is that he uses leg kicks and that he's careful about his entries, but he's got to enter really carefully and really safely. If he gets caught, he's getting sparked out. And, good luck to Mullarkey, and I hope that he uses the leg kicks. Just don't see him doing it. I think as soon as he makes a mistake, he's out on the canvas.
Alex, is there even point asking you for a pick, mate? You just got to flip a coin. What are we doing?
Yeah. To be fair, I was going Worthy KO.
All right, fine. Well, I'm going Kharma Worthy via certified whacking, which is the most disrespectful term you can use on this podcast. A round one certified whacking. I just can't see anything else. I think Jamie Mullarkey, toughness only gets you so far in the UFC, right? And Kharma Worthy is the next step up. Alex, do you want to talk about Alonzo Menifield versus William Knight, which is basically two game characters jumping into an octagon and seeing what happens?
This is actually, do you know what? I'm actually kind of excited about this fight, as long as it doesn't go all 3 rounds. But at the same time, these are two absolute tanks. Just if you look at them physically, it's like, are they actually UFC fighters or are they trying to fucking enter a bodybuilding competition? Because they're just huge. So this is definitely two tanks going against each other. I think both actually, I believe, came in through the Dana's Contender series. I know that definitely Menifield has come through. Yeah, both of them coming through Contender series. Mostly their wins are by knockouts. TKOs. I think Knight has some decent wrestling. He's shown some good, he's shown some good ground control in one of his fights. But I think this is gonna stay standing. I think this is gonna probably won't finish longer than won't carry on longer than 2 rounds. I think it will be. For me, it's very difficult to say who's going to win this, because honestly, they have quite similar styles of fighting. So it's just going to be a bit of a coin flip as to who's going to crack who first. It should be an interesting fight, though.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the way to sum up William Knight is to go and watch. I think it was in the second round against Alexa Kamor when Alexa took him down, banged to rights. And William Knight was like, nah, bro, we don't do this. And just literally just stood up and dropped him down. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's possible. Yeah, I mean, this is just two athletes being athletic, right? Yeah. Neither of them are great fighters. Both of them rely heavily, and that's not, I'm not attempting to be disrespectful. I'm just saying both of them are just so superior in their athleticism that they just lend on that, right? And their
Menifield was actually a pro football athlete, I think.
Not surprised in any way, shape, or form. Robbie, what have you got to say about this, if anything?
I've got to be honest, I don't know these two guys very well. I don't want to become Alex and become the real butt of all the jokes, but I've not seen I've not seen much of these guys' fights so far.
Yeah, I mean, Lee, do you want to rescue your teammates?
I know, you're really letting the team down. The way I see this is Knight's the guy, right? He looks a bit more like he's up and coming. He's had a few kind of highlights. I think Menifield's the step up for him. Menifield's on a bit of a skid. He's got a bit more of a name. He's been in there with OSP, defeated, but still. I think this is just the UFC kind of managing Knight up the roster a bit. Let's see if you've got it. It gives them a bit more of a test whilst not destroying the guy. I think whilst the smart money probably is on Knight, and I know he's like a slight favourite, I think Menifield has as good a chance as any, and I think they are just two big athletic guys. And I think this will be a bit of a coin flip fight. I think the only thing I would say is Menifield's been in there with more people. He's been in there with better people. So if there's anything that you kind of take from that is he might be a bit more composed in there, which might give him a bit of an edge, which is probably, if we're getting into picks, I'd probably go Menifield knockout.
All right, cool. I mean, yeah, we'll just move straight in. I mean, Robbie, what's your pick?
You know what? I'm not informed. I'll go Menifield knockout.
Fine. I mean, to me, this is utterly a 50-50 fight, and just because you guys have picked Menifield, I'll take William Knight. Right? Like, fuck it, Alex.
Yeah, I'm also going with Knight, but as KO.
Fine. Do you want to take me through Randa Marcos and Luana Pinheiro, Robbie, please?
I will. However, I've got to ask. I'm just on the, I've brought up UFC 260 right? on Google. It's not on here. It's not been taken off the card, or is that a mistake by Google?
It actually has. Randa Marcos has been tested positive for COVID, so that's my bad. We'll move into Jessica Penne, which is Hannah Goldy, which is my fight. Now, this one is an interesting fight, right? It's an interesting fight. You're saying it's not the best?
I said that's probably for the best that we move on, because
fair enough.
Not sure that's going to be the most active fight in the world.
Yeah, sure.
I will say shout out Randa Marcos though. I used to live in her town in Canada, so I always kind of wanted her to win.
Right. So Jessica Penne and Hannah Goldy. I mean, to be honest, this is some strange matchmaking, if I'm truly honest. Hannah Goldy has only had 6 professional fights. And Jessica Penne, this will be her 19th fight, right? Obviously, the UFC are attempting to build Hannah Goldy a little bit with a name like Jessica Penne, but I'm not sure that it's going to go that way. I was watching again Jessica Penne's fights, and her last fight was against Danielle Taylor, and Danielle Taylor actually has a really, really similar body frame to Hannah Goldy, and fights a little bit similar as well, although Danielle Taylor is a little bit more aggressive, and I think that's the way to beat Jessica Penne. Penne is 38 years of age now. She's been fighting since 2006, for fuck's sake. I was in school in 2006, and this lady was professionally fighting, right? I just don't really know what happens in this fight. You look at Hannah Goldy and her fight against Miranda Granger. She just never really got into it, right? Miranda was too big, too strong. She pushed her against the fence, really good head positioning, and Hannah just was never really able to get starting. She looked okay in those sort of exchanges where both were throwing at the same time, and maybe Hannah came off a little bit cleaner with her power, but it just wasn't enough. And we look down her record, and her pro debut was against Gillian Robertson, for fuck's sake, and she won that fight in the decision. So we know that she's got a decent level. I just wonder whether the Penne fight is a little bit too soon, because if you let Penne get into her range and you let her get into her grappling exchanges and whatever, it's going to be a long night. Robbie, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm going to be quite careful about how I put this because I don't want to be really insulting to... It's not just the women's divisions that I'm saying this about. It's these divisions where there
Sean
are...
is back and live. Here it is.
It's these divisions where there are not very many people in them. And the women's divisions, by their nature, there's less talent because there's less women involved in the sport. And I don't think that bit is controversial to say. And I think the trouble is when you've got these low talent pool divisions, you end up bringing people into the UFC really early. It's a big comparison to, say, the lightweights. They've got tons of fight experience when they bring them in. Whereas Hannah Goldy, 5-1, came into the UFC, how many fights? This is her second fight in the UFC, is it?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
She came in the Contender Series and then she lost to Miranda Granger.
Yeah, so... it wouldn't surprise me if this is a bit soon to throw her in with Penne, because Penne is experienced and she's not going to have that same problem of being afraid of engaging and pulling the trigger. Whereas Goldy, no idea what's going to happen because I've not seen enough of her, and that's not because I don't know who she is. It's because the division's really small and because there's just not been enough going on, and I think that it's a fine line that UFC is going to have to walk in order to grow these divisions, but without making them seem thin and like people are being brought in just for the sake of it. I know that's not actually very insightful on the fight, but I think that's my comment on this division as a whole. And it was generally going to be my comment on the fight that we dropped out. It's sort of very similar points.
Lee?
I think the Jessica Penne, the kind of age difference is huge, isn't it? I know.
Yeah, it's mad.
I think we're getting to the point now where we're seeing people, because Jessica Penne was on the first female Ultimate Fighter.
Yes.
And we're starting to kind of cycle through now where we're seeing people who've been in the sport for that many years and they're kind of clinging on, and fair play to them, they're taking a paycheck. The way I look at Jessica Penne is she's probably 1 foot in, 1 foot out at this point, which is why you give them people like that to the kind of new Contender Series people. Let's see where they're actually at. The people are not going to be as kind of angry and fighting for it as they was, say, 10 years ago. I think Penne has really good jiu-jitsu, and she may not have displayed it in the UFC, but she does have really good jiu-jitsu. She's a legitimate black belt. And I think that's probably where I'd edge towards, is Jessica Penne just winning through experience, being able to do a bit more, edge it enough. I don't think it's going to be fight of the night. And I think we start to see kind of the end of Jessica Penne's career with a couple more wins, maybe.
Alex, anything else, or can we move to picks?
I would just throw in that there's a pretty big reach disadvantage on Goldy's side. Massive. It's 6 inches, so that could play a part, and I think the experience will be the defining factor in my opinion as well. So that's it.
Cool. Well, Alex, what's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going Penne decision.
Okay. Lee?
Penne decision.
Robbie?
Penne decision. Just the more experience, and I just don't think anyone's knocking anyone out in this one.
Sure. That's Penne decision all the way around. Let's rattle through these last couple of fights, as I know I've taken quite a bit of your time. Jared Gordon, Abubakar, Nurmagomedov. Lee, what are your thoughts?
So I think there's one person watching this with a lot of excitement, and that's Scott Coker.
Sure.
So Abubakar Nurmagomedov is famed for punching Conor McGregor after the Khabib fight, for those who don't. I think both. So yes, there you go, Robbie. The penny has dropped. I think Scott Coker would love nothing more than Abubakar Nurmagomedov to lose, him take him to Bellator, and set up a fight with Dylan Dennis.
Yeah.
I also would like that. I think it'd be quite good. I think for those reasons, this has been carefully matched in his favor by the UFC. Typical striker versus grappler. Both own one UFC. Jared Gooden had actually a good fight with Alan Jaban and kind of lost a striking decision. I think what's going to happen in this one is Abubakar's going to take him down, as and when he wants. I think he's going to just be a bit too much on the ground. And when they are standing up, there might be moments of fear where Jared Gordon's got a bit more Jared Gordon's got a bit more power, but I don't think it's enough to carry him through to a victory.
Anyone got any overarching thoughts to add to that?
Why is Nurmagomedov's record 0-0-0?
I don't know where you're looking.
It's definitely
15-3-1.
No, but on the UFC website, it's 0-0-0.
Actually. Well, that's the
that's
UFC.
about as insightful as we're going to get, I guess.
From me, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on to picks. I haven't really got. I actually completely agree with Lee for what it's worth, and I'll pick Nurmagomedov decision. Robbie,
I'll go. You know what? I'm going to go Nurmagomedov submission just to be controversial with you guys.
All right, fair enough. Alex,
I'm going to be even more controversial, and I'm going to say Gooden by knockout.
Sure. Lee?
I'm going to play the odds and say the UFC has to fill the spaces on the prelim cards because it's sole television. So they have to put the decisions in there. So it's a decision to Nurmagomedov.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Modestas Bukauskas versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Alex, what do you think?
It's not a bad fight actually. Oleksiejczuk is quite an interesting fighter, decent striker. Bukauskas as well. I mean, they're both, I think, predominantly strikers. They're both, coming off, I think, losses. So this will be an interesting fight. I see it going. Oleksiejczuk can make it above a dirty fight. I think he has an interesting boxing style. Bukauskas, they're both actually fighters that seem to be on the front foot, from what I've seen. So I really don't know who to give it to. I don't know who's going to edge it here. It's who's going to show up best on the night, and I think it's going to stay standing. Most likely, this will end in after 3 rounds. It'll be a decision fight.
Fair enough. I mean, I think for me specifically, both of them share a common opponent in Jimmy Crute, and I think both of them were actually fed to Jimmy Crute a little bit too early. Specifically for Bukauskas. Obviously, Bukauskas came from Cage Warriors, had a really, really good run there, came in, and we saw what happened in his first fight. But to put him directly in line with Jimmy Crute, I thought was a bit crazy and fast-tracking him a little bit too much. I think Bukauskas is the better fighter here, but as you rightly say, Oleksiejczuk can make it a dirty fight, and I'm taking Bukauskas anyway. I'm taking Bukauskas' decision. But Robbie or Lee, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just want to add that considering these two guys' names, Alex was the right shout for picking this one. I don't know if I would have nailed that. I mean, let's be honest. This far down the card, there could be some bangers, but they're not going to be the most well-known guys. And I don't know if I can add anything to what you guys have already said.
Fine, Lee, give us a pick. And
yeah, I'm going to go Bukauskas decision.
Perfect. We'll move on to Gillian Robertson, Miranda Maverick, which is a fight that was actually moved from another card. This is probably going to be a squashing by Miranda Maverick, if I'm truly honest. Gillian Robertson is really good if she's grappling on top. If she's anywhere else, she's not really good. And I don't, I mean, I guess that is disrespectful, but I don't mean it that way. Like, I actually really enjoy watching Gillian Robertson. I think when she gets the takedown and she's grappling on top, she's absolutely phenomenal. But we saw in her last fight what happens when she's on the bottom. She just closed her guard and took punishment, and I don't really understand why. Like, she even had her back against the fence and she made no attempt to get up. It was just a bit of a crazy one, whereas Miranda Maverick looks every bit the destroyer, every bit the new contender in that division, and all she needs is a couple of names, and then we're going to see her at the top, sort of really top echelon of that division. And Gillian Robertson is a good name for her to pick off. Miranda's really good, really good striking for that division. Strong, powerful, she can grapple. Yeah, I think it's a really tough night for Gillian Robertson. Anyone else disagree?
Completely agree. Gillian Robertson gives a name who's known in the female division.
Yep.
Introduces kind of a bit more hype. And I must say, Miranda Maverick is a name you can build on. Like
Absolutely.
It's something
Maverick.
you can promo on. So yeah, I think she's being fed. I'm going Maverick.
Yeah. So I'll take Maverick via second round stoppage, TKO. Robbie?
I'll give it a third round TKO for Maverick as well. It's going to be Maverick, but it just depends how.
Mm-hmm. Lee?
I'm going Maverick decision.
And Alex?
With heavy beating though.
Yeah, I'm going the same. I'm going with the decision from Maverick.
All right, cool. So we'll then move on to Shane Young versus Omar Morales. Robbie, do you want to run us through that really quickly?
This is disappointingly far down the card. You know what?
I agree.
I think this one is a fucking great fight. I cannot believe it's second on in the night. It's absolute madness. Now, I guess it's because, again, featherweight, huge division, too many people in it, and they're ranked really low. So I guess that's why they're down here. But you want a kickboxing match where people are going to be going non-stop all 3 rounds and absolutely unafraid to go forwards. This is your fight. Shane Young, he's I guess I'd say he's a little more predictable of the two. It's all measuring jabs and big right hands. That's basically his whole game. He's not the most sophisticated guy, but what he does really well. And, he comes to really throw down. Omar, on the other hand, a lot more variation in his striking. It uses a lot more hooks and uses a lot more kicks, but they both come to really throw down. It's just going to be a straight up kickboxing match. They barely go for takedowns. I think the UFC was mad to put this so far down the card.
I agree. I think my only thing to add to that is I wonder whether Shane Young's taken enough time off after the Ludovic Klein knockout, because that was a
fucking bad knockout.
Yes, it was really bad. Ludovic Klein looks fucking phenomenal, but I think this is a tough fight to come back to, one, but also it's only been 5 months, right? 5-6 months, something like that. And obviously you're talking a 12-week camp, 6-week camp in between there. Yeah, it could be tough for Shane Young. Anyone else got any thoughts?
Can I just ask why he's got one of the crappiest nicknames, the Venezuelan fighter?
Yeah, sure. I mean, these things happen in MMA, I suppose.
Oh god, it is just Venezuelan fighter. I thought that was just they were describing him when I was listening to the commentary.
No. Alex, you want to give me a pick, please?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Young. I trust in CKB.
Fair enough, Robbie.
I'll go Morales. I think that Young's more predictable. I think they both do similar things really well, but Young's more predictable, and he's not going to know what Morales is doing more. I think Morales, I don't really know. Probably a decision, but I reckon it'll be a good fight.
I'm taking the same as you, but I also think that's a sleeper fight for sure. Lee?
I'm going Young. I think...
Okay, you hate fun. Got it.
Yeah. No, I'm going to take Young. I think it'd be a good fight, but yeah, Young for me.
All right, wicked. So we'll move on to the last fight, or the first fight of the night, I suppose, which is Abubakar versus Marc-Andre Barrio. Alex?
I believe this is Ottoman's brother.
Yes.
And also the Moroccan Vin Diesel.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how much to say about this fight. Both fighters fairly average.
Wow, really
both.
I hope you never bump into any of them.
Yeah, fucking same. Marc-Andre, he's 1-3 in the UFC. So yeah, not a great record. I can see why he's down so low. But
Jesus Christ.
I honestly watched both of the fighters, the fights before the UFC, fights in the UFC, and I don't really know where to take this fight. They're both strikers, so I think it's gonna probably stay striking. Abu seems to be a bit more comfortable taking it to the ground. He's showed a bit of grappling in his last UFC fight. So I think, unless, Mark is also, as I said, he has 3 losses in the UFC, so he might be a bit desperate. He might come out swinging. But I feel like Abu could take this by decision.
Anyone else? Any thoughts?
I think it's the end for Barry. I think this is his skid's going to end. They're going to get rid. I think he's being fed to somebody who's half decent, and away he goes back to the low leagues.
I agree. I think this is straight up.
I've got to say, there seems to be a lot of that at the moment. Like, occasionally you get 1 or 2, like maybe 1 or 2 max on a card where you're like, I'm not sure this guy's going to stay. But after the recent cuts, and they've still got more cuts to do, right? That's still the plan. You have to look at a lot of these and just be like, I don't know.
On Island, that shit's expensive.
Yeah, you just got to look at these fights. You just know that they're trying to cut people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's been at least 4 or 5 fights on this card where that's definitely the case, right? Guys have been set up so that they lose, or they're in close enough fights, they might win, and they're like, nah, see you later, it's not worth it. And to be honest, I mean, we won't touch on this too much just because of how long we've gone and whatever, but maybe this is a topic for you guys to talk about on your own podcast, which is, before, the UFC was the premier division, right? It was the premier division. It was the Premier League. It was the Champions League. If anything, it was just the greatest organization for talent and for everything else, right? Now, what's seeming to happen, the trajectory that seems to be turning over, is the Contender Series and Tough are the way in, right? And people are kind of, instead of you going and being on a regional scene and doing 10, 12-0, becoming a champion, whatever, you're coming in at the Contender Series at 3-0, 4-0, and you're getting signed to the UFC, and that's where it is. So the sport, from a UFC perspective, seems that what they're doing is diluting their product slightly by building their own stars, quote unquote, or building their own products. And in a way, I have no problem with that. But what that means is, one, you're paying fighters loads less, right? Because they're coming in on developmental contracts, which is way cheaper for the UFC. They can still have the UFC brand. They're still going to compete. And if you put 2 guys together that are not very good, you may even get a decent fight out of it, right? And what you're doing on the other side is the guys at the top that are costing you loads of money, they're getting shipped out and put in really tough fights that they're probably going to lose. And that's how it seems that the aesthetic of the UFC is right now. And as I said, let's not dive into it too much right now, but that's probably something for you guys to dive into your own podcast.
Will do.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure.
Excellent. I mean, let's just move to picks. So I'm going to take Abu Azaitar versus Certified Whacking, whatever round he fancies, frankly, even though he is 35 and a bit shorter. But I mean, yeah, I agree with Lee that this I think this is the end for Barrio. Alex?
Yeah, Azaitar.
Lee?
Zaitar, going to maul him.
Robbie?
Yeah, give me Captain Morocco. I'll give him a 2nd round finish.
Phenomenal. That's all the picks. What we do at the very end is I'm just going to ask for your fight of the night. So, Robbie?
Fight of the night? You know what? Oh, God, it's got to be Volkanovski Ortega, surely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Lee?
Yeah, as much as I want to say Woodley and Luque, I'm going to go
Jesus Christ.
Volkanovski.
Have some self-respect. Jesus Christ.
I'm Liam, controversial.
I'm with Volkanovski Ortega. That's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, same as the others.
All right, perfect. Well, that's it, gentlemen. That is it. That is absolutely it. I hope that Alex, you've learned about some new fighters today, and hopefully you can take this on to your UFC tenure in the future. But just from my perspective, just a massive thank you to all 3 of you for coming on, taking the time and doing the research. Some of you, obviously. It was a real pleasure to do it with somebody else, and it was a real pleasure to have you guys on, and it'll be really cool to do it again at some point.
It would. Thanks for having us on. And sorry, we have made this quite a long one for you, haven't we?
That is absolutely fine. I will vastly enjoy my editing, I'm sure.
Which is all my fault as well. So nice.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most of the podcast was your fault, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. But yeah, Robbie, if you could just round us out by telling everyone again where they can find Combat Thoughts and where they can find you personally, each of you, if you wish.
All right, Combat Thoughts. If you want to hear us talking for way too long about way too complicated topics and more, Combat Thoughts on Instagram, Combat Thoughts on Facebook, on Twitter. Then we're basically on all of the major streaming platforms in terms of the podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can email us at combatthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. God, what else can we do? We're all over the place. Look for the brain with the GSP headband. I've also got my own page. You can either find it at Dizerans MMA, or you look at Robert Dizerans on Facebook. I've got my own little journalist page of my own stuff, or you can find my things on Overtime Heroics.
He's also super modest. He's got a book on Amazon as well.
I've got a book on Amazon, but turns out it's not hard to publish stuff on Amazon. You upload it and you click yes. So it's pretty slick.
Awesome. Lee, where can people find you?
I'm one of the weird people who's not big on social media, so I just use the Combat Thoughts account. So if you're here at this point and you want to give me some shit, just do Combat Thoughts account. Go at me.
Amazing. I mean, that's pretty nice publishing. And Alex, where can people find you?
I mean, if you really want to fucking find me, if you're really that stupid and you want to see where I am a white belt warrior.
That's on Instagram. Perfect. Thank you very much, gents. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.